All right, so imagine you have a job. Oh, yuck, bro, I feel sick just thinking about the job. Oh, disgusting. Anyway, imagine that you have a job and you think the reason that you're paid a salary, the reason that you're employed, is because you have a valuable opinion to share, when in fact the actual reason that you're employed and paid a very multi-six-figure salary, like a nice juicy income, is so that when you share your utterly worthless opinions, the audience can laugh not with but at you. I have just described the current employment situation of Dan, unless of course he's actually playing 400 IQ chess that's so far beyond my ability to comprehend that he knows that he'd only have a job if he continues to sound like an absolute moron when it comes to Tesla, emotional, unhinged and ridiculous, in which case credit where it's due. Personally, I'd never be able to embarrass myself for money, but hey, whatever. I mean, I guess this is the male equivalent of OnlyFans if that's the case, in which, hey, look, good on you, Dan. I guess he's providing for his family. Just wanted to take a little quick moment. I started watching this segment, which is so hilarious. Just look at the title. It's on the segment Fast Money. Hello. I mean, what do we know about fast money? Yeah, it's a great way to lose money, being in a hurry. Fast money traders. I mean, oh boy. I can't believe this is a real segment on a real show. Tells you everything you need to know about the finance media though. And the title, Trading Tesla's Big Day. So I just heard an absolutely moronic statement from Dan, who's either just sharing his actual opinions or, like I said, maybe he's just super smart and actually just leaning into the role of an absolute retard who's always going to be anti-Tesla no matter what, just so he's got a job so he can provide entertainment value so the whole audience can laugh at him. And he was sharing some thoughts on Tesla and their Robotaxis. So I rewind a few seconds and decide, let's record this. I don't know how much more he's going to have to say, but the first couple of seconds I heard him, holy shit, this is too good not to react to. Over to you, Dan.
So when you think about what's going on, they're going to launch 10, maybe 20 of these Robotaxis or Cybercabs. They're two-seat cars, which is kind of, it doesn't...
Notice he almost said, when referring to Tesla's two-seat Cybercabs, it's idiotic to have a two-seat vehicle. And he thought, oh, I better not say that. Now he's suggesting it doesn't make sense. I'll let him finish his sentence. This is roughly where I paused and started recording, so I don't know what's coming next. But I've got a lot to say on this.
Doesn't make a lot of sense. Yeah. They're two-seat cars. And so at the end of the day, if Tesla's going to make these things, then that means that they have to own the fleet. And that's something that we learned this from Uber over the last...
So, boy oh boy. First and foremost, when Tesla launches their first autonomous vehicles in Austin in Texas in June, motherfuckers, they won't be two-seat Cybercabs. Those are entering production in the future. They'll be existing Tesla vehicles, Model Ys, joining the fleet. However, it appears that Dan, being the extremely intelligent, rational, non-emotional person that he is, forgot to think before opening his mouth, which would definitely be a first for Dan. The vast majority of trips that are done in taxis, Ubers, Lyfts today, how many passengers? Answer, one. The next most common number of passengers in a distant second place is 2. And with a two-seat vehicle, you have covered the vast majority of the ride-hail market. Now, from an EV efficiency point of view, cost per mile, the less mass, the less material in the vehicle, the cheaper it is to put on roads, the cheaper it is to operate, moving less mass, less energy, okay? And, I mean, obvious things are obvious. I predicted well before it was unveiled that Tesla's dedicated Robotaxi would be a two-seat vehicle. I mean, you guys watch regularly, I'm on the record, you heard me call it miles away because it's obvious that's going to address almost the entire ride-hail market. And then, of course, Tesla's existing fleet of other vehicles, Model 3s, Model Ys, etc., can supplement the demand when you've got 3+ passengers. And wait for this crazy idea. But you know what happens if, wait for it, you got, let's say, 4 passengers or 6 passengers and you need a trip? Already crazy. You could actually call 2 Cybercabs or 3 Cybercabs. This is truly one of the most retarded things I've heard Dan say. The two-seater is obvious and inevitable and ingenious. Dan had to stop himself saying that it was idiotic. Now, is this guy a real person? Is he playing a character? I actually don't know. I mean, maybe he's a lot smarter than I give him credit for. He just realizes, well, I've got to sound like a retard, so I've still got a job. But beyond that, does he actually know that when Tesla launches their autonomous service in Austin in June, motherfuckers, they're not going to be Cybercabs initially. They're going to be Model Ys. Let me just wrap this up by asking everyone watching a question. Think about the last handful of times that you personally have taken a taxi or an Uber. Then consider whether or not you're the exception to the rule or the rule. And ask how many passengers were. Was it just me? Was it me and a partner? Or was it the whole family heading to an airport? I mean, do you often take international vacations with the family 5 times a year, 10 times a year? Probably not. But, maybe you're in the city, you got to get home from an event, catching up with a friend, after a night out. It appears that Dan's job, no matter what Tesla does, is to say whatever they're doing is a dumb idea, it's stupid, doesn't make sense. And if that is his job, I tell you what, he's actually due for a pay rise.
Last 10 or years or so, nobody wants to own the fleet. If you want to talk about losses until something scales, that's the thing. And one last point, when you look at earnings for Tesla, they're expected to do $4 in 2027. They did $4.07 back in 2022. So you got to figure out how to pay for this thing. So if the stock is up 40% right now, it's got over $1 trillion market cap. I just don't see how it grows into that because Optimus is years away.
Yeah, I don't.
So on the how do you pay for that thing, let's see here. Manufacturer Cybercab for sub $20,000 repays its entire cost in profit in a year or two at most. I've done the math on this before. Let's go over it real quickly. $2 per mile, 25% profit, 50 cents per mile profit. Average cab does about 50,000 miles a year, a little bit more. Bam, suddenly $25,000 in 1 year in profit, more than it cost you to put the vehicle on roads. And then, of course, we also happen to know that Tesla's got well in excess of $30 billion, with a B, billion dollars in cash and investments. As for Optimus being years away, overnight, Tesla dropping yet another video. Here we can see on screen an Optimus humanoid robot taking out a bit of trash. We now have the prompt to pick up the brush and dustpan and clean the table. So far, so good. Now, obviously, this isn't perfect yet, but tear a paper towel from the roll, bam, done. We now have pick up the spoon and stir the pot. By the way, I love stirring the pot. What are we seeing here? Use a vacuum to clean the floor. We are seeing real examples of Optimus humanoid robots being trained right now to do real tasks in home and now in factory. Pick up model X4, blah, blah, blah. So we're seeing example after example after example after example. Opening microwaves, closing curtains, all tasks by a single neural net. Optimus right now, the humanoid robot, being trained to do in-home tasks and of course factory-based tasks as well. Is it perfect? No, but the rate of progress in the last few months is abso-fucking-lutely incredible. And as I said before, the penalty for making a mistake with a humanoid robot is an annoying fuckface that knocked something over or couldn't complete the task correctly. It's not life and death, as opposed to autonomous vehicles where people can die, can get injured, be permanently disabled. A lot of people don't seem to understand. Because the stakes are nowhere near as high in terms of life and death with humanoid robots versus autonomous vehicles, they can be rolled out much more aggressively. Now, it may take a few years before an Optimus humanoid robot is produced at scale, reasonably affordable to an end user, and highly competent. But look at what we're already seeing happen right now. I would buy one of these things today if I could. Probably save me a couple of hours a week taking out trash, vacuuming, just doing little tiny bits of housework, odds and ends, small, simple, boring, repetitive tasks. Load the dishwasher, unload the dishwasher. When I don't cook, who's got time for that shit? But bro, to take out the trash after I've eaten a meal that I've had delivered? A very bizarre point from Dan, suggesting, well, Tesla's profit was this much. How are they going to make more money in the future? I mean, Optimus is years away. I mean, again, they're launching their Robotaxi service in Austin in June. And years away. That goes back to the whole point that the title of that segment, Fast Money Traders. This is what happens when you have a trader mentality. You can't see beyond your micro penis into the future. Maybe it takes a couple of years before Tesla starts printing absurd amounts of money from autonomy and the humanoid robot. So what? I'm going to say it again because it was a serious comment. I'd buy a couple of Optimus humanoid robots now if I could. If they're already at this level of functionality, knowing they're going to continue to improve with over-the-air software updates. Dude, I'll be all over this, and I know I'm exception to the rule. Most people are going to want to wait a little while longer until it's even more capable and functional. But those who know me personally understand how much I'm willing to pay to save time. By the way, shout out to some of my Patreon subscribers who've seen some recent examples of exactly that. We won't get into the details here, but if you know, you know. Anyway, let's get back to Dan, the DMF, and the other folks on Fast Money, the traders, here to tell you how to miss the forest for the trees.
I don't really think there's much debate over whether or not, the stock is trading a bit dislocated from the actual automotive business. I mean, if you look at the last quarter's numbers, you had a 20% decline in revenue and 71% decline in net income. So clearly that coupled with the 40% rally, you see some dislocation there. That doesn't really... Absolutely
fair point here from Bro. If Tesla was just a car company and investors couldn't see anything else in the future, absolutely fair point. And I'm sure what's coming from, obviously, I guess this is the counter to Dan's retardation, somebody that actually makes sense. Hey Dan, maybe it's possible that investors are considering some of the future profitability from autonomy and the humanoid robot and other elements, software, AI, energy storage, etc.
They seem to make a lot of sense. With that said, and Dad makes a good point. If you talk about the fleet, like you typically don't see these type of multiples on very highly capital intensive businesses. It just kind of erodes gross margin. You have deferred maintenance, you have CapEx, you have all of these things that you have to, an inflated cost basis that makes it very tough to support that type of multiple. With that said, I clearly think, the bulls are all about humanoid robots, full self-driving, and you really have to get behind that story if you're going to own the stock, particularly at this level.
It has never...
Once again, I completely agree on this point, right? If you just think Tesla's a car company, if you're ignoring autonomy, you're ignoring the humanoid robots, why the fuck would you own the stock?
Traded with an auto multiple. It has never traded on sales. It has never traded on all these things that you guys are talking about. It's always traded on hope.
Yeah.
Adam Jonas of Morgan Stanley makes an interesting point. He says most of the valuation of Tesla is based on products that have no disclosure, little disclosure, or are far from commercialization. And it has always been the case for Tesla's valuation that has made up the bulk of the valuation. Julie Beal, I know you can't get on board with Tesla, but can you see... Can you see why others might?
No, not at all. I think the real thing is that it's all kind of hopes and dreams. Remember, the very first time we talked about robotaxis was in 2019, and Elon was promising 1 million robotaxis by 2020. So I think the credibility gap with the proclamations that we're expecting has always been very wide. There's never really been an ability to deliver. And I think if you look at what the Cybertruck really means, it's an inability to recognize product market fit. And I think it's the same with having a two-seater for your Robotaxi.
Oh my God. And bro, I thought Dan was supposed to be the only retard on the panel. Here we go again with the two-seater Robotaxi. Are these people that retarded? Actual question. Are they actually this fucking retarded? Brother, do they not understand the Pareto principle, 80-20 rule? Bro, 2 seats covers literally 80+% of all fares in taxis. Uber's like, over 80%. 2-seaters covered. You can supplement this with 2 Robotaxis or wait for this, an existing Model 3 or Model Y being added to the fleet. Is this real life? Actually, are they actually this retarded that I'm having a 404 error? How do these people tie their fucking shoelaces in the morning if they can't understand something as simple as the Pareto principle and the massive benefit that comes from the reduced mass, the reduced complexity parts, the increased energy efficiency, which means a reduced cost per mile for a cybercab that seats 2 people as opposed to 4 or 5 that's unnecessary for 80+% of trips.
You're really building off of what you think is kind of cool and great, but I really don't have conviction that it's what the market is looking for. And I think that's really what's going to hinder the stock and earnings.
Bruh, she's legitimately brain damaged. Anyone that lives in a major city right now, go for a walk and just notice the taxis. Notice how many empty seats there are in the average taxi with a passenger in it. Better yet, next time you get in an Uber, ask the driver, what's the average number of passengers you have? What's the most common number of passengers? Guaranteed, it's going to be 1 or 2, mostly 1. What are these people smoking?
Although it doesn't seem to really matter in terms of the stock multiple, but I do think at a fundamental level, there's really not enough here to justify anywhere near this level of valuation.
Man, it's so hard to be polite. Not that I actually try. 5 or 6 years ago, I did some personality testing, including on my politeness and agreeableness. In fact, let me dig up the receipts. I'll put them on screen now. I'm sure you will be completely shocked to discover that my politeness is exceptionally low. But if you put me in a room with 100 other people, I would be less polite than 97% of them. And on agreeableness, put me in a room with 100 people, there'd only be 1 person in the room less agreeable than me. Imagine your shock. I know. And I just so happen to have a photo of the one guy in the room who'd be even more disagreeable and less polite than me. Why am I telling you this? It's because I'm going to tell you the truth. I don't care about causing someone to get butthurt or offended. This woman is a moron. Dan is a moron. They have no idea what they're talking about and should be ashamed and embarrassed for ever having said this on air. Here's how easy it is to not be an absolute fucking retard and embarrass yourself, self-immolate on air by explaining how nonsensical it is to have a 2-seat Robotaxi. All you need to do, I mean, you could just try Google, but save a step. Ask an LLM. What percent of fares in taxis, Ubers, lifts, and all other equivalent forms of transport as a service in passenger vehicles are either 1 or 2 passengers? I mean, you don't even need to do this. If you've got a fucking brain and you've ever been in and or seen taxis driving around, been in Ubers, you can do the math yourself and extrapolate from your own personal experience. Again, regular viewers of the channel will have heard me repeatedly say that when Tesla unveils their dedicated Robotaxi, it's going to have 2 seats, motherfuckers. I mean, the obvious things are obvious. It's not because I'm smart. I mean, my verified IQ is 69 and I'm a proud member of Densa. I never stop bragging. But even a moron like me could figure out ahead of time that if you're going to make a dedicated Robotaxi and you're not stupid, it's going to have 2 seats. And that will cater to the vast majority of trips. And because it's much less mass, it will be cheaper to manufacture, faster to manufacture, and much more important than that, have an even lower cost per mile, because the less mass, the less energy, aka cost per mile to move the mass. But even, bro, how hard is this? Click. First thing Grok spits out, approximately 83% of rideshare trips involve 1 or 2 passengers. And if you really want to dig deeper, then do a deep search. Same fucking prompt. While this deep search is underway, you understand that even a cursory, like 5 millisecond search is going to give you a reasonable approximation. Go a little bit deeper, you're going to find a bunch of different studies. There'll be taxis, Ubers, Lyfts specifically. We'll find the average occupancy per vehicle. And it's got to be somewhere in the vicinity of 1.3, 1.4, 1.5 passengers per trip on average. And here we can see more thinking here from Grok on the deep search. Average vehicle occupancy for ride hailing in Denver, 1.36 passengers per ride. We also have an estimate for average occupants per trip for household vehicles, which, by the way, 1.5. But a household vehicle, personally owned, if you do occasionally need 3 or 4 people, you need a vehicle that will do that because you own the actual vehicle. Very different to transport as a service. A typical Uber vehicle carrying 1.75 to 2 passengers per hour, but obviously the average Uber trip isn't a fucking hour long, suggesting that the average actual trip is 1 to 2 passengers per trip. Hello, how hard is it? Even if you can't use your brain to do this thinking, ask an LLM. Holy shit, dude. And here's the detailed analysis. You guys can pause and look through all the reasoning here. But check this out. Distance-weighted occupancy without deadheading was 1.31 passengers per ride, you dumb motherfuckers. Now here's Grok's final estimate from the deep search. 70% of trips have 1 passenger. 25% have 2 passengers. Now, I'm not very good at math, so let's count together here. 70% plus 25, 70, so 20, so that's 70, 80, 90 plus 5 is 95% of trips, 2 or 1 passengers. 5% have 3 or more. We go on and on and on and on. The long story short, bro, average passenger per trip for ride hailing in Denver, 1.36 passengers, right? Estimated percent with 1 to 2 passengers, 95%. Traditional taxis, New York City, as an example, which is probably going to be a little bit more skewed toward 1 person occupying, right? Higher incomes, more people out for a drink after work, heading back, executives, blah, 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 blah. 1.24. Estimated percent with 1 to 2 passengers, 98%. Combined estimate global, average passenger per trip, around 1.3 approximately. Hello. Just to be reasonable, I also gave the identical prompt, except for Hi Grok, to ChatGPT, latest model, deep search. What did we come up with here? Roughly 9 in 10 paid vehicle for hire trips in the US, not globally, but in the US, carry either 1 or 2 riders. You can see some data from different cities here. New York City yellow cab, 1 passenger, 70.9%. 2, 14.5. It's over 85% either 1 or 2 passengers. Chicago taxis, 95% either 1 or 2 passengers. I mean, holy shit, dude. I'm still almost speechless. A rare occasion indeed. How did 2 people on CNBS imply that Tesla didn't know what they were doing and weren't producing a product that would suit the market by having a dedicated 2-seat Robotaxi design that enters production soon? Are they actually this retarded? And is it any wonder so many supposedly smart investors have missed out and missed out and missed out again when it comes to Tesla? A serious question just to wrap up here. Has anyone ever heard a worse example of reasoning regarding Tesla? You know, the Robotaxi's only got 2 seats. I don't even understand. This is an all-timer. God damn. Want more content? Early access? Bunch of perks? Click the links in the pinned comment. AG1 is awesome. I've been taking it daily now for more than 3 years. It's a great way to fill in nutritional gaps. It's packed full of vitamins, minerals, and whole food source nutrients. Plus, has prebiotics, probiotics, and adaptogens to improve gut health, regularity, and help your body handle stress. I'm always looking for an edge to help me feel and perform my best, which is why I haven't missed a day of AG1 for more than 3 years. Just try it and see how you feel. Click the link in the pinned comment or head to drinkag1.com/SMR and get yourself a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 plus K2 and 5 travel packs.